Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Extra Time, the U.S. Men's National Team Soccer Podcast. I'm Tim, joined again by my friend Chris. And on this week's episode, we're going to give some updates on the U.S. men's head coaching position and the sporting director position that have kind of been up in the air. We may or may not kind of wrap up the Reyna situation that's going on. We'll see where that conversation goes. We will talk about the Grenada game that was just played. We'll discuss a little bit about what's going on with the U.S. men abroad, and then we will give you a little bit of a preview into the next game coming up against El Salvador. All of that is next on this episode. Stick around. Chris, it has been, I want to say at least a month since we did. The last video we did was a January recap. You and I chatted a little bit before this. Not a whole lot has happened in that time span. Obviously, I know there's tons of other content creators making stuff and podcasts going off, mostly on abroad types of things.
I mean, they've been playing games, but the actual national team hasn't been doing much, so.
Right. Tyler Adams getting hurt. So that's some kind of big news. The striker situation updates still with the guy who I really need to learn how to pronounce his name. He's still lighting it up. And then a big news for the United States. I think it's Zendejas, right? Is that how you say his name? His last name?
Yeah, Alejandro Zendejas. Yeah.
Alejandro Zendejas declared for the United States, and according to the media outlets I was following, he was Mexico's top prospect. He was playing for one of the best teams in the League MX. Mexico was really excited. They probably won't necessarily be too thrilled that we snagged him.
No, they will not be thrilled at all.
Yeah.
He was definitely, I don't know if he was their top prospect, but he was definitely up there for them.
Yeah. And he looked really good for us. I can't wait to get a chance to talk about him. I caught that little piece of podcast information on Alexi Lawless's podcast. I was like, oh, that's right. I've been trying to follow that guy. But before we get into any of those things, it's been a long time, man. How you been?
Doing very well. Spring's coming, which is always nice.
Yeah, you and I both got a brand new dog.
Yep.
Which is cool. Yours was planned. Mine was not planned. So that's nice. Yeah, spring is coming, even though we had hail here yesterday. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's been.
I mean, we had some thunderstorms,
interesting.
but they were normal thunderstorms.
Yeah, no, we didn't get any of those thunderstorms. We got a bunch of weird hail and wind, and shortly after we had just done our statewide tornado drill. So. Yeah. All right. So, diving right into it. Men's head coaching situation, I will be the first person to admit I know the least about coaches. Right? One of my buddies has just messaged me because N'Golo Kante has now mutually parted ways with Tottenham after his super fun comments. After
Antonio Conte?
Antonio, sorry. You got all these players. N'Golo is
he's a player at Chelsea, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Every time I hear his name, I think of something else.
Yeah.
It is Conte. I don't know. I'm not a fan of the Tottenham head coach. My apologies. Yes, the Tottenham head coach, Conte, after he got up and basically said, I don't know why everybody's blaming me. None of my players play with conviction and passion. The club doesn't seem to care because we've just kind of been mutually in fourth place for forever. It's not my fault. We've had coaches before do this. Mourinho's been here. Pochettino's been here. All these guys have been here. We got nowhere. And everybody's putting all this blame on me. After he made those comments, I was like, this guy's done.
Well, yeah.
There's just, you really just
he obviously didn't want to be there anymore either.
Correct. So I'm glad that, it's frustrating for Tottenham because I feel like this is the fifth coach in just as many years. But again, when he messaged me about that, I don't know, right? This new Nagelman guy, how do you feel about him? I don't know anything about coaches. That being said, the only coach that I really know anything about outside of Greg Berhalter is Jesse Marsch. I couldn't tell you what the status was on any of these, but the reason I wanted to touch base on it was because before this game, the president of United States Soccer Federation can't remember her name, got up and was being interviewed and talking about the positions and hiring and stuff. And she laid out a timeline. I should actually get her name so I don't look like a total fool up here. And she said that they were hoping to have the sporting director hired before the beginning of the Women's World Cup. And then after that sporting director was hired, then they would give some kind of indication as the direction for the men's head coach. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think that's a good idea. It makes sense to have your sporting director be involved in choosing that head coach, because it would make no sense for you to choose a head coach and then select a sporting director and the two of them not get along and clash and create outside problems. And I don't think it's going to have a lot of negative consequences for the team to wait, 6 to 8 months. Anthony Hudson has been with the team for a while. He is some continuity from Greg. From what I can see, like obviously we don't know a lot within the team, but from what I can see, the team seems to get along with him just fine. And it's not like there's a lot of high stakes games in this period anyways. So yeah, I mean, I don't have any problems with them doing it that way. I would think they could probably go a little bit quicker with the sporting director search, but taking their time is not a bad thing.
No, yeah, I completely agree, especially knowing, you and I had conversations before about the role of the sporting director and the order that we would have gone about hiring things. We even had briefly mentioned, Greg seemed to have a skill set that matched that, right? That, seemed to work for that kind of a position. First, the U.S. soccer president is Cindy Parlow Cone.
Right.
She's a former U.S. Women's World Cup winner. She's the first female president for the U.S. Soccer Federation. And they had talked about this in a couple different ESPN articles, and I think ESPN is really interesting because we'll touch base on this in a second. I don't know if you got a chance to see it. Did you get a chance to listen in on Christian Pulisic's his interview?
I did not listen to the whole thing, but I did hear some.
You heard, okay, you probably
highlights
heard
and snippets of it, yeah.
the part that I'm going to be referencing. But yeah, anyway, not to digress. I agree with this, and I agree with the statements that you've made, right? Like, we're not really in any kind of a crazy situation, right? The team so far is pretty solidified, right? Yes, we can always try to get new talent, right? Like, we snagged Zendejas. We're trying to get I don't know how to say his name.
I gotta look at it again.
I really don't, right? You have to look at it. I want to say
Yes, I have to be
Bagolan or
looking
something
at it.
like
Yes, Bagolan, I think. is his
Bagolan
name.
or something, or Bagolan. I don't know. Fallow.
Oh, man.
Fallow. I mean, yeah, that didn't get anywhere. So, as far as acquiring new talent, obviously you never want to stay stagnant. We always want to be trying to grab guys, bring in all this new talent. But most of our guys are pretty young, right? We have a lot of young talent currently as it is.
Yes, we did a lot of talent building in the last window. So we have a good talent pool, and
Right.
they have good potential. It's a matter of forming them and shaping them to be whatever they can be next.
Right. And I think that this is going to be a big balancing game between knowing that we have the 2026 World Cup, right? Getting somebody in who can really take their time with these players, really develop them, and get them into a place where we have a legitimate chance at winning this next World Cup. And also not delaying so long that the coach doesn't have the right amount of time, right?
Yeah.
I do like that if you wait for the sporting director to be when the Women's World Cup has started, the Premier League is done, right? Lots of coaching changes are going to be happening in that.
That's true. That's good timing.
It is. I know Jesse Marsh has expressed that it's not really for him, right? But who knows? Maybe the summer rolls by, a whole bunch of positions move around, the dust kind of settles. This Reyna situation is now dead and buried, and it's blown over. U.S. Soccer's got their sporting director. They're starting to look a little bit more solid. The internal workings of the federation are kind of solidified. Maybe then it's more appealing for a candidate like Jesse Marsch, right?
Maybe, yeah.
And maybe it's not, but at least in that situation, the internal workings are solidified so that anybody who comes in knows they can hit the ground running. Whereas if you bring the head coach in right now, the head coach comes in, they get their cabinet of guys, they get their assistant coaches, they're scouting, they got a bunch of reports, and then the sporting director comes in and says, okay, here's my vision, here's my direction. And the head coach then has to say, right, has to say, well, we weren't really, we're really too interested in those players, or we're tired of fighting the battle for Mexican American players, right, and Latin American players. Like, we're gonna leave them. We want to go after more, European American players, because that seems to be where the money is. Yeah, and we just, we don't need that conflict.
Yeah,
that conflict in
I
this
agree with
moment.
that.
So, kind of jumping now, I thought it was interesting, in the interview, the way that Christian not necessarily handled the questions, but I think he expressed himself enough that everybody understood, right? You could read between the lines pretty easily and understand Christian's, he's pretty embarrassed for the Reynas, right? Like, when you make a statement that says, this is youth soccer stuff, right? For you to think, he's like, this is youth soccer stuff, right? It's pretty childish, like arguing, getting upset over playing time. And then he's like, you could kind of tell he had that moment where he was like, well, I said it, so I guess I'm done, right? Like, that's all I'm going to say about this now, right? We got to move on.
Yep.
I did I did really enjoy his comments about Greg, saying that he did have moments where he was not a fan of this dude, and he did feel like, getting benched helped him, right? Having those moments where your coach was like, yeah, you can sit right here for the whole game. You can sit right here and you can watch. Because as players, I think it's not just important to have that opportunity to sit back, reflect, and watch how the game unfolds in front of you. It's also good to just get that reality check of, like, we don't need you, right? We don't need any of these players. Like, you got to earn it, right? Like, this crest stands for something. And if you're going to uphold it, you have a spot on this field. And if you're not going to uphold it, you have a spot on the bench.
Yeah, that's fair. I thought he handled it pretty well. I can imagine, though, from Gio's side of it, I'm sure you don't want to hear that being said publicly about your family. But it's probably pretty low on the list of things that are bothering him compared to the last few months. So yeah, I mean, I thought he handled it pretty well. When the journalists just ask those kinds of questions, it's like, what do you want me to say, really?
Right.
They want you to say something ridiculous.
Yeah, and he kind of just took the bait and said, fine, I'll say something ridiculous.
Yeah. And, he's right. It is ridiculous. It is youth soccer type of stuff. And you would hope that they'll learn and be more mature, but we'll see.
Yeah. I did think it was interesting that the journalist was like, well, you've opened the door for me. I actually went back and replayed Christian's answer prior to that, because I was like, I don't think he did. And I re-listened to Christian's answer, and it had absolutely nothing to do with anything they were going to talk about. It didn't have anything to do with drama. It didn't have anything to do with coaching. And he's like, so you've opened the door for me to ask this question. I was like, no, he hasn't.
No, he didn't.
He didn't. He didn't
You
say
just
any
wanted
of this
to ask
stuff.
that
Right.
question.
You were just dying to find a way to be like, hey, let's talk about something juicy.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why I was just like, I like his comments about Greg. I like the way that he talked about the other guys on the pitch, and, being able to learn from that moment and how he looked at the tournament after they got eliminated and how they're looking forward to 2026. I'm kind of glad that he addressed the Reyna situation in the way that he did, because he's over it, right? We need to get over it. We need to just kind of move forward.
Yes, it needs to be forgotten.
Right. And I haven't read too many articles about his interview afterwards, so I get the feeling that everybody's kind of done talking about this. Because like every time you seem to you hear the word Greg, and then we're like, yeah, who is going to be the next coach, right? Like if Greg
Yeah.
isn't going to be it, then let's stop talking about Greg and let's figure out who
Yeah.
we're going to get involved here.
And it
Um,
does feel like they're moving on from Greg, which I think is smart.
it
Like
does. I think so too.
for various reasons that we've talked about previously.
Yeah. Um, and so now to make a pretty clean segue into this game, assistant coach, holding the program in. Okay, he's bringing his guys up, and we see, as far as lineup goes, right? I'm going to try to, because words matter. We see a different formation, right?
Yeah.
That the men are playing, and I kind of liked it, right? We're
It's
down
the
Tyler
formation I
Adams.
talked about. It's what I talked about. I wish we had seen at the World Cup. And obviously I would have wanted McKennie and Adams as the two, but that was what I was wanting to see at the World Cup. Um, those three in the three spot. Um, that's what I was hopeful for. So it was exciting to see it up there.
Yeah. And so I thought Anthony Hudson did a good job at putting together a team that would get the job done and test the positions he knew needed testing, right? We
Yeah.
we, we have a back three. So I'll go through the lineup now just for the people who didn't see it, right? We had Joe Scally playing out on the left. We had it's not Taylor. I keep thinking like it's Taylor. It's not Taylor.
Austin Trusty.
Trusty. So, Austin Trusty, Mark McKenzie, and Brian Reynolds.
Brian Reynolds. Yep.
Brian Reynolds. Those were our four backs. And then through the midfield, we saw. So we did a 4,
4, 2, 3,
3,
1.
1. And so we had our Weston McKinney and we had our Luca Della Torre kind of playing in that middle spot. And then we see Christian owning the center. We see Gio and Aronson out on the wings. And then we got Ricardo Pepe up front. And as far as formation goes, I was excited. This is what we had talked about. Obviously, we're missing that Tim Weah, but that's fine. He's got a solidified spot, right?
Yeah.
We bring Pepe back into the mix. I'll talk about in a second because I just will rant because I just don't know why. I do know why. I know why. But so offensively, we got it, right? This team's going to get the job done. They're going to score goals. It gives you a lot of abilities.
We have plenty of firepower.
Right. And you think about the guys that are going to come off the bench with all that young talent that we saw coming into subs. It gives you the ability to just go I can take any of these guys out because we're going to be winning.
Mm-hmm.
And then defensively, these are just guys, right? We've seen Joe Scally before. We've seen Mark McKenzie before. Trusty is out here getting a chance.
Trusty and Reynolds, I think, were both brand new.
I believe they were brand new.
One or two before.
Right. They might have had a cap that we're not
new.
aware of, right, in some strange friendly, but I'm pretty sure these were brand new guys. And so before we, kind of dive into the specifics of it, 7-1 result. The Grenada's goal, don't take anything away from them, right? The guy cranked it.
Oh, yeah.
Who stood out the most for you for the U.S., and I need two players. One, just who genuinely stood out the most, and then two, who was a new face that surprised you?
Well, without a doubt, it was Pulisic who stood out the most. He created basically everything that we had positively going forward. Every advance into the attacking third came through, a ball to him and him either dribbling or making that next pass into it. I guess we did have a few semi breakaways in there, but whenever we had to break down the Grenada defense, it came through him doing it. So he was definitely, and that's not even talking about all the assists and his goal. He was fantastic on his set piece deliveries, and just his positioning and placement. He was great, honestly. And it's playing against Grenada, so I think that is part of the reason why. But this is the best he's looked in a couple of years for the U.S. So, as far as new faces,
so as far as
Oh, go ahead.
No. I was gonna say, so as far as for new players, right? For the subs that we saw come in, Taylor Booth came in, Yunus Musa, who we've seen, Johnny Cardozo, who we've seen, Daryl DK, who we've seen, Alex Zendejas came in, and then I believe Mihailovic came in. I'm pretty
Towards
sure.
the very end, right?
Yes, I'm pretty sure those were our 6. Those were the 6 guys that we saw come in, which meant that Alan Senora did not play, Tim Ream did not play, Anthony Robinson did not play, Serginho Dest did not play,
Yeah.
and Zach Steffen and Ethan Horvath, that shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. Those are guys that are on the roster that we'll probably see them in the El Salvador game.
Yeah.
Most of our starting back 4 was not playing, and at this point, I'm actually kind of hoping we don't see them in the El Salvador game because the game doesn't matter, right? Like, we're advancing either way. The goal differential is way too high, even if El Salvador beats us. But anyway,
Yeah, for new players, I mean, I wouldn't say any of the defense stood out really. Like, they did fine. There were definitely some mistakes, but no, definitely for the new players, Zendejas was the standout there. I mean, I think he came in for Pulisic, and we didn't really miss a beat there. Like,
I mean, his first touch, he scored, right?
I don't know if it was his first touch.
It
but
might have been
was
his
early,
first
yeah.
touch, but it was like, right, like,
Yeah,
I mean,
it was early into him coming in, and it was a great shot. But he had other moves and chances that were dangerous, and yeah, I mean, he was impressive. And I'm happy we saw that because it gives some challenge and some motivation to our other players who are up there.
yeah. And as far as like the ebb and flow of the game, obviously, a game that's 7-1, that's a lot of goals. That's a lot of stoppages in play, right? So
Yeah.
it was weird to watch because you didn't feel a lot of like ebb and flow in the game. You felt like a lot of like bursts and a lot of strings of play, right? And I thought the United States did well, which should have been a given, right? Like, you're playing Grenada, we need to do well.
Yeah.
I've seen us win games in the past 6 or 7-1 where we don't look this good, right? Where it just kind of, we just thump it up the field and the defense makes a couple errors and,
Sorry.
you're totally fine. We just kind of like hit it somewhere and it like kind of goes in or, whatever. And like we get a bunch of goals and like it just is like not a fun game to watch. Right from the kickoff, right? We'll hit the ball up over the top. Christian's bringing it down. He's trying to hit crosses back in. Some of our balls through were great. I thought the build up to McKinney's first goal was fantastic, or second goal was fantastic. I just thought the goal was sloppy, right? You hit the ball deep into the back, the guy heads it back down, and then he just kind of flicks it.
Yeah, just toe poked it
and
in,
it goes in. The build-ups were all great, right?
Yes,
the goals themselves were, some of them were fantastic, right? I thought Ricardo Pepe's first goal was great, although I thought both Grenada defenders just butchered that, right? I'm in Discord with Ryan, and Ryan's like, that cross was terrible. And I was like, I don't know, he whipped it in there, and Ryan's like, they ducked.
I disagree.
He's like, they both ducked underneath it.
But they ducked because he whipped it so hard.
He did. He creamed it.
I think I texted you at the time. It was a fierce cross.
Yes.
Like,
he went for it.
Cranked
for sure.
that thing in there, and I mean the guy was trying to head it out and just missed because it came with so much pace.
Yeah.
So.
And I heard what Ryan was saying, and that like teams with more experience.
Oh yeah, they wouldn't have gotten through there.
Correct.
Absolutely.
It's not going to, that stuff doesn't fly against the Netherlands with Virgil van Dijk. But
yeah, but Pepe being there and ready and like a clinical redirect header, it was so nice.
The ball.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Oh my gosh! And then you know what? And then that was it. Pepe got his goal, and then he checked out because I don't remember seeing. He had one other opportunity, and it was a breakaway, and he hit it right at the goalie.
He had another goal. What are you talking about?
I don't remember this goal.
I mean, granted, the goal was entirely created.
He did.
The goal was entirely created by De La Torre. An amazing pass, like sublime pass.
Oh yeah,
totally
when
caught.
Yes, and he
caught the whole defense leaning the wrong way. It was beautiful, but it was again a clinical finish. He took a touch and he buried it.
Yep.
And we haven't had that kind of surety from any of our center forwards.
No. And,
You
and
know, like,
that is something that is worth noting. It's a great point that
yeah,
we did finish clinically, right? Weston McKennie, the ball gets headed up. What does he do? He turns left-footed, bang, it's in the side of the net.
yeah, that was a beautiful finish too.
Right, it's a beautiful finish, right? Like Ricardo Pepi gets one chance with his head, it's in the goal, right? Zendejas, the ball comes across to him. What does he do? One touch onto his left foot, buries it, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't hesitate, right? Brendan Aronson steps across, right? Hesitates, takes another touch, still knocks it in the corner, right?
Yeah,
Like
it was good finishing overall.
it was good
Absolutely.
finishing over. It was something
Well,
that we
and
hadn't
actually,
seen.
only Pulisic's goal was a bad shot. Like,
Right. He
it
just
was
he just
lucky to
happened to
get
get
through there.
fortunate, yeah, that it hit the goalie and snuck down underneath him there, yeah.
It was a great play leading up to it. It was just the shot was bad, but fortunately it went in. No, I think Pepe, he did enough to say, for me at least, that he's in the running, you know, for a forward. Because he did do a good job of dropping back to link up play.
He's not your starter, though. He's not your starter.
No, I mean, if Weah's healthy, I want Weah up there.
Do you think we're going to get a chance to see this formation with Weah up top?
I would hope so. I mean, it seems like such a dangerous combination of players that I really would hope so. I mean, that being said, Aronson and Reyna didn't look great in it.
Yeah, can we talk about?
Aronson-
We need to talk about Reyna. You can finish your statement, and we need to talk about Reyna.
Yeah. So yes, we absolutely should have a chance to see this formation with Weah up top. He's fast. He is clinical in his finishing, and he is a better. He has better ball movement and better vision than any of our, you know, center forward strikers that we have.
And he's finished on the biggest platforms.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
I mean, he's finished against the best teams that we've played against.
Yeah. So like I said, Pepe did enough for me to say he should, you know, still be in the conversation. He should still be playing in some of the lower level games and, you know, maybe be on the bench for the bigger games.
And when we played Grenada before the World Cup, he had 4, right? That was like the last game before the World Cup.
I think it was that game.
He had 4. Okay. And then he got booted off the roster. He scored 4 goals. Well, technically those weren't the last 2, right? The last 2 were South Korean.
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, it was last summer though. Yeah.
Okay.
Now as far as Gio,
I mean, this is your boy, right? This is your guy.
Yes.
And I'm not saying I don't like him. I'm not saying I don't like him. I'm just saying this is your guy.
No, I have. I mean, since he started at Dortmund, I have been excited about him. He's had some up and down, obviously with injuries, but this game, like, he just didn't look right, and I can understand that if it's a head thing with, you know, either he's thinking too much about what everybody thinks of him, or he's in that mindset of like, I don't care what anybody thinks about me and I'm just going to do what I want.
I mean, you are playing next to the guy who just said your parents are like youth soccer parents.
Yeah.
And they're childish, you know?
Well, and you could see that they don't have good communication. There was several times where like Pulisic would pick up the ball on the left on the left wing. And he would, his general move is to start to cut in, but Reyna would always make the wrong run because either Pulisic would be cutting in and continue to cut in, and Reyna would run in the middle and get in his way there, or Reyna would make the overlap and Pulisic would cut back out and run into him again, and that happened several times throughout the game. So just the communication between them is definitely off.
Yeah, and that was the one thing that if I had to criticize anything that Christian did, that was the one thing, at least in the first half, that left me kind of confused, was he was defaulting to playing in the spot he's used to being in, right? Like Christian's used to being our left winger, and he was supposed to be that center, holding midfielder. And I'm not saying that it's not a tactic, right, where your guys move all over the place. It certainly is the tactic. It just felt a little confusing to me.
He wasn't moving. Yeah,
right, that like Reyna is supposed to be that guy out there, and like Reyna is now caught going, do I come underneath? right? Or do I make this
Yeah.
overlap? And you're right. It felt like him and Christian were always doing the same thing, right? If Christian was
Yeah.
cutting in, Reyna's like, oh, I'm here. Like, leave. I don't know. Like, drop the ball off to
Yeah.
me. And sometimes it worked, right? Sometimes like Reyna would get it and he'd hit it through to Aronson. Aronson would do something, or they try to play the ball over the top to Pepe. But other times it was like, here's Christian out on the touchline, and he's driving to the goal line, beating people, and you're like, what are we doing with Reyna then? And Reyna just looked lost most of the game. Like, how do I get
really
involved?
did.
How do I get involved, right?
Yeah.
And Aronson, to an extent, kind of did too. I felt like Aronson kept having to get sucked into the center because we attacked up the left so many times. And we're used to having Weah out there, right? So there was no long ball switch outlet.
Yeah, long balls over the tops, yeah.
It was it
Well,
was McKenzie our right back?
Reynolds.
Reynolds. It was like, so we're waiting
Yes,
for
and
Reynolds to come back through.
I do think a lot of that imbalance, because, we attacked almost entirely down the left-hand side. We almost never had a productive attack down the right side. And I do think a lot of that imbalance is because of Joe Scally being a better player than Brian Reynolds.
100%. 100%.
I mean, there were other factors in it, in that, McKennie playing on more like the right side of the midfield, was able to suck some of that pressure away from Joe Scally and then move the ball out there. But it is also because Aronson is a chaser. Like, it's one of the great things about his game is that he has tons of energy and he chases and chases and chases. But then that means that he's not out there as the outlet when he needs to be. Personally, I would have much rather have seen Aronson in the center position, where, I don't know who, like we said, we don't know exactly who was supposed to be in the center, Reyna or Pulisic, but I would have loved to see Aronson in the center.
And I agree. We've seen him do that for Leeds. He's drifted in that spot for Leeds. Yeah.
And it's because he chases. So he'll chase any of the back four. He'll chase them with the ball, and then when the ball goes out to the wings, he'll run out to support them. So it would have made more sense for him to be in there. And I think also because, like we said, Reyna ended up playing in the center most of the game, and he just didn't really know what to do. Like, he would drop way too deep for that position. He's dropping back into the De La Torre and McKennie spot to pick up the ball and then not doing anything with it. He like turns and looks, thinks about making a pass, and then turns and passes it back to the center backs and kind of shuffles out.
Right.
So,
and we were really fortunate to play against a team that was not very good on the counterattack. Right? Because without Adams in that holding, central midfield spot, we were exposed a lot on like turnovers, but I'm using the word exposed very loosely because obviously we weren't exposed, right? There was a couple chances early on in the first half. Grenada winds up getting their goal off of one of them. They hit the post on another one. Some of that is a lot of the inexperience of our defense, right? Working together as a foursome, maybe not being the best players that we have, but right, like getting their footing, shaking the dust off. But we also had a lot of moments where, had there been a team that understood how to take advantage of that gap that we left, when Christian would slide out to the left, and then we'd see McKennie join him, and we'd see Aronson join him, and we'd see Reyna join him, and then now there's nobody left in any of those other spots. And so as soon as the ball popped behind Reyna, right, it's De La Torre who sometimes got sucked up, and you're like, uh-oh.
And De La Torre is not the physical presence at all that Adams is.
No.
Like, he's got good positioning and good vision for the game, but when it comes to chasing into the passing lane or coming in to really make a tackle, he doesn't bring the same level that Adams does.
No, I mean, Tyler Adams is a monster, right?
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that we were missing from our game. Now, thankfully, it didn't hurt, and I really like to see this new style. But obviously, we had to play a different tactic without Adams. I thought we did. I thought we were successful in it.
Oh yeah.
And not because I don't like Tyler Adams. I still have this bad taste in my mouth of like the United States wanting to play through Michael Bradley for like my whole, childhood, and I'm still
Yeah.
scarred by it. I like Adams. I like his ability to move through there. I like his defensive prowess and the impact that he makes. I just really liked watching us attack all night, and I thought it was great. Right, the one
Yes.
goal,
I
the
mean,
one
the
goal
way
we
we
give
moved the
away,
ball was
right?
very good.
It was great. I mean, so the one goal that we give away, the first statement out of my brother's mouth is, "Wow, that looks a lot like the Netherlands game." And
And it did, yeah.
it didn't. It just kind of hurt to be like, "Oh my gosh!" Like, and maybe there
We
is
didn't
something about
learn
right.
anything.
Maybe we didn't learn anything. There is something about that baller, right? That is a dangerous ball to play for
Oh
guys
yeah.
who
I mean,
aren't,
we're not the only team that gets exposed by it. It
right,
happens every week in the Premier League. At least one team gets scored on by that
right.
cutback
Right.
to the
And
top of the
the only
box.
good news about that goal is that like having Tyler Adams doesn't change it, right? It's not like if Tyler
No.
Adams is there, he just cranks that ball out of there and we keep a clean sheet. Like, I mean, the guy still hit a rocket, right? It was still an
Mhm.
absolute rip.
Oh, it was a beautiful shot. Yeah.
Uh I think that playing Matt Turner was awkward. I don't know. I just don't think we needed to. I know that. So I do know that
Yeah.
Slovenia was occupied, right? He's playing with the U20 guys. They
Mhm.
played against Argentina, maybe Argentina and France or something like that. They played a couple really big games, getting prepped for the Under 20 World Cup, which is going to be exciting, and I can't wait to get to talk about that more. But um, I don't know, like you weren't playing Stefan. That was kind of awkward for me. So I would have liked to see Horvath, right? Because why
Yeah.
not?
I would have
Why
liked to see
not? Right?
Horvath.
Like you
Well,
know,
yes. I mean, I get maybe the thinking is we're playing an inexperienced back line, so we want
sure,
our
sure.
number one keeper. Like I get that. But at the same time, you're playing the inexperienced back line because we know we're playing Grenada and we have way more firepower and we're going to score a bunch of goals. So why not just let Horvath have a chance then?
Right. And so as going back to something we had talked about, as far as subs go, right, and talking about the guys we wanted to see more of. I thought Taylor Booth did a fine job of getting himself involved. I know we've seen him
Yeah,
before.
he was good.
I thought I was impressed. Like I know I've watched him play before, and I know that I don't remember what that was. Right, so
Hmm.
it wasn't much of an impression and impact that
I
was
mean,
made.
that's kind of what his game is. He's not flashy or impressive, but he's pretty solid.
Right. And that's what I felt in this. Like I was very impressed with the balls that he played. I was very impressed with just the consistency, the calm composure that he had. And then I also, I mean, Daryl DK got nothing compared to Zendejas, right? Like you have an opportunity where
Oh yeah. No.
5 different guys scored goals, right? Christian scores, Pepe scores, Zendejas scores, McKennie scores. 5 guys.
It was yeah. Pepe, Aronson, Pulisic, McKennie,
Aronson,
and Zendejas. Yeah,
and
5
Zendejas. So
scored.
with 5 different guys have scored, you got to be thinking, right, with 7 goals, like
Now's my chance to get a
right
goal.
now's my
Yeah.
chance to get a goal, right? And he, he doesn't really do anything, right? And it's not like you're coming into a game where the intensity is dead, and we've packed it in. We went full tilt the whole game, right? Granada's
Yeah.
exhausted, right? We know in these games,
Yeah, we kept attacking for
right?
sure.
And teams who are less fit and have less experience, they just fall off, right? We saw it in the World Cup where like as soon as the 70th minute, all of a sudden it's like a switch gets flipped and everybody's cranking, guns out. It's like a whole different engine's running. I was expecting to see more from some of these guys. I know like Yunus Musa just kind of put it in cruise control, right? What does he care? He's coming out as a late, late game sub. Zendejas did not waste time, right? I mean, just
Yeah.
walked in,
No,
scored.
he did fantastic.
Just absolutely fantastic. I'm excited to see more of him. I was really impressed with what I saw with Taylor Booth, and I like Joe Scally, right? I don't think Joe Scally did anything that like wowed me, but when I had to look at the 4 center backs, he's the only one that didn't get exposed.
Hmm.
And so, if at least for me, I'm like, all right, I'm jotting that down. If Jedi ever gets hurt again, we have another left back. Maybe maybe
Yeah.
I want to
He
try
doesn't.
him out at right back. Like,
It was very obvious that there's a significant drop in speed from our first string
oh yeah,
outside backs to
we've
our
got
second
some
string outside
slow,
backs.
yeah, slow outside. They're not attacking wing backs. That's for sure.
But that being said, yeah, Scally's positioning and ball movement and passing, like he played well enough. Like you said, I'm happy with him as a second string behind Robinson.
Um, yeah. So thinking now, Grenada game done, backing up to Premier League club soccer, right? How are we feeling about our American players as these seasons come to a close? I know we've talked a lot about players who we want to move, players who want to not move. Leeds is still fighting a relegation battle. Christian's got to go somewhere, right? I know we're probably going to hear more talks about him sooner rather than, sooner or later. Weah might be making a move. Pepe's just made a move. Paxton Aronson is moving into the Premier League, or not the Premier League, but he's moving overseas into the European leagues.
Um, for a lot of them, I think it's better not to move. Uh, the three guys at Leeds, if they can not get relegated, they should stay at Leeds and try to build that, I think. Leeds, if Leeds can just get a couple better defenders, they'll be a much better, more solid team. Rodrigo coming back is way better than Patrick Bamford. Um, so he will be a big help for them coming back. So if they can stay out of relegation, I would rather see them stay there and, continue to work on that chemistry and see if they can build that team up into something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Christian, it does feel like he just has to go because
He's probably the
Chelsea's
only one, right? Now that I sit here and
Chelsea's
reflect on it,
thing.
he's got to be the only guy that we're like, he's got to move. Everybody else, I'm kind of like,
Yeah,
if they did move, it's like, okay, sure. But like, he's the only one that I'm
yeah,
like, dude, you got to go. You got to go somewhere.
yeah. Because Chelsea's system. I, I guess I don't know if I can call it a system, but
Well, and they just spent so much
Chelsea's
money. They got like 10 new guys. Like,
yeah, they got Mudryk in his spot. They still have Raheem Sterling. Like Chelsea's philosophy of let's just buy as much talent as we can, and like whoever is on form this week, we're gonna play them. Um, it's it's not healthy for any of the players there, really. Um, like it works for maybe some of their center backs and center mids, but
right.
any of the wing backs, like any of the attacking talents, it doesn't work for
No, it
good
doesn't. It doesn't work at all.
player development.
And they're changing
So
formations and they're changing. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so
yeah,
if so, in the English Premier League, all the teams in the English Premier League, which team would you like to see Christian go to? If he stays in the EPL, which team would you like to see him go to?
if he stays in the EPL, I would like to see him go to a team that will use him as an attacking left winger or right wing. He does do better from the left, but he does fine on the right as well. Um, so teams that might do that. Um, I don't think he can't go to Tottenham
What do you think
because
about
he's
Arsenal? I'm not saying Arsenal. I'm not saying Arsenal would take him, but like,
I
what do you think about Arsenal?
Arsenal would be a great system for him. Like, yes, if he played there, he it would be great for him and he would thrive. But I think Arsenal is very happy with Martinelli on the left. Um, and they already have some bench players, and I don't want to see him go and sit on the bench again.
That's
So
true. Um, I'm thinking. I'm just going from the top down. Not Man City, right? Not Tottenham.
no,
Man United.
probably not.
I think Newcastle
Similar.
a little bit. Sorry, finish
I
your
could
thought.
see
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Newcastle. No, United. As I like Ten Hag and I like what he has done at United. But they kind of just loaded up on a lot of attacking talent last year.
And they're looking to
So
sell, right? Or I don't know if Man United is looking to sell, but a Qatari banker is looking to buy Man United,
the Glazers are looking to sell. So,
which
but
which
only for
probably will be.
ridiculously expensive amounts of
I
money.
mean, it'll be great for Man United fans because nobody likes the Glaciers, but it'll be so bad if if Qatar owns another team. Um,
Yeah, true.
I don't think Liverpool. Um,
No, not
I
Liverpool.
I don't really like I'm indifferent on Brighton and I'm indifferent on
Um,
Brentford. Like I think
well,
both of those teams are interesting.
Brighton wouldn't. I don't think Brighton would take him because they just got Matoma.
Oh, that's
Um,
true. That's true.
and Matoma has been lighting it up, so they're not going to go for another left winger at the moment. But Brentford, I could see Brentford. Um, yeah, he might be a little too expensive for Brentford.
Can we
Depending on
just say,
what
wow? I mean,
Chelsea wants to
Chelsea
move him. But
10th place at 38 points.
yeah, they've been ridiculous this season. It's been bad.
I don't think I don't think he would work. Like I could see Fulham taking him. I don't want to see him at Fulham because I don't think it works. Like Fulham doesn't play that kind of a style. Not with
See, I don't
Mitrovic
I don't
and
know about that actually.
you don't think so? You think it might work?
I think it would work because, and you're right, if Fulham focuses on Mitrovic, it wouldn't work for him. But when Fulham has succeeded this year, it has been because Mitrovic is more of like a supplement to the rest of how they've been playing.
Hmm.
Um, Fulham thrives when, Polina is controlling the center and Willian is getting all of the attacks. Um, that's when they've really thrived. And through Willian breaking down the defense, you have Robinson making overlaps, and Mitrovic getting
Mhm.
poaching goals.
Which, for the
And
record,
right
will not
now,
happen next week when they play. Because if you weren't watching, Fulham got 3 red cards in one game. Two
yeah,
of them
that
went
was
to
that was bad.
Mitrovic and Willian. If you did not see that highlight, it's not a joke. 3 red cards, one
Well,
play.
but
You need to
that
go
was
see it.
that was the FA Cup though, right? Not the Premier League.
That's
And
true.
so I think
That's true. You're
they
right.
I think they can still play in the Premier League, but I guess I'm not sure
Yeah, I don't
how
know
much
how
those
like
two cross
all
over.
because I know like with
Yeah.
FIFA's it's the next FIFA sanctified game.
But
You're right. It might be
technically
like
the Premier
another
League
UEFA game.
Well, but technically the Premier League falls under the English FA, so like it might cross over,
Right. Yeah,
but
and UEFA's the whole
I don't
governing
actually
body.
know if
Yeah, I
not.
don't. Yeah.
But anyways, I know Fulham, they just got another winger, and he's pretty good, but I think Pulisic is better. So like I would be fine with him at Fulham.
Yeah, I could settle with them. I could settle with like Arsenal, and not because they're the top team. I just like the way that they all kind of attack. Um,
Oh yeah, they play beautiful soccer.
I do think you're right though. I think that like Christian would wind up on the bench, and because he's so injury prone, it's not going to take much for him to just stay on the bench. Um,
Yeah.
and I think everybody below this, and I'm actually going to say no to Leeds. Like as cool as I think it would be to have 4 Americans on one team, it's just setting us up for failure if they do get relegated. Because then everybody can look at the United
Yeah.
States and go like, "Ha, you had all your best players on a team, and the team didn't do anything. You guys didn't make it anywhere." And then everybody else, I just it's a hard no. I don't know what's going on with Everton. They're like
Oh yeah.
their
No,
team
no,
of old
no.
is gone. West Ham looking to get relegated, which is just crazy because they've been at the top of the tables, a couple years ago. Yeah, it's wild.
Yes. I mean, if he's going to move, it needs to be a top 10 team
Mhm.
in the Premier League and a top, 3 team in any of the other leagues.
Yeah, and it's Folarin Balogun.
Yes, that's
And
his name.
yesterday, Gareth Southgate responded to our interest, telling him to be patient. So obviously, everybody is still interested in him.
That's because he scores goals,
He
man.
scores lots of goals. We will see.
Yes.
Yeah, we will see. So, USA El Salvador, Chris, coming up. It's probably it's going to be fun to watch just for. It's actually coming up tomorrow, 7:30. It's going to be fun to watch just for like talent's sake. Obviously, this game doesn't matter because the group standings are already there. we've already got too many points, and the goal differential is insane. We would actually have to lose to El Salvador by 9 goals. We'd have to lose to them by 9 goals. So El Salvador has to beat us 9-0, which won't happen, I hope. I really hope. And then after that, the Nations League, I believe it's Mexico? Question mark.
There is a game against Mexico in April, but I guess I'm not sure what.
Yeah. Mexico's currently tied with Jamaica 2-2 right now.
Oh, okay.
Bobby Reed scored in the 7th minute. Pineda scored in the 17th minute. Edison Alvarez had an own goal in the 32nd minute. And then Chiqui Lozano scored a penalty kick at the end of the first
April
half.
Game against Mexico is just a friendly.
It's just a friendly, okay.
Yeah,
So
the Nations League games will be this summer, and it'll depend on, how the standings end up.
Okay, that works, because I was like looking around like if it's Canada, Honduras, Costa Rica, Panama, us and El Salvador, Mexico and Jamaica, only 4 of those teams are going to get through. I'd have to believe it's going to look really similar to the teams who went to the World Cup. So
Canada, Mexico, US,
and then
Costa Rica.
I mean, I suppose Panama could. I don't actually know what their group looks like, so that game actually matters. That might be a fun game to watch, because Panama is currently only up by 1 point, so the winner of that game does get to go.
Okay. That's worth checking out, yeah.
It'll be worth checking out. That game is going to get played on Tuesday at 10 o'clock at night, so I probably will not watch it. I will be long asleep at that point, but I'm excited to watch the United States play El Salvador, get some more young talent in here. Any closing thoughts? Yeah.
I'm just interested to see what the coaching philosophy is. Like, you did experienced forwards, inexperienced defense for this game. Are you going to flip that? Are you going to do our experienced defense and our inexperienced forwards for El Salvador? Or are you going to do, our best squad just to close it out and finish strong? I guess I'm interested to see where they go with that. I think I personally would like to see us start our best lineup, get a couple goals on them, and then sub people out and give people a chance.
Yeah.
That would be what I would like to see.
I share that philosophy too. I know when you and I had talked about how we wanted to see qualifying go and how we want to see group stage go, right? Like, you and I are big fans of like, just get it done, right?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Like England's mentality, right? Just like put the whole thing to bed and then rest your guys and go for it. So, yeah, I agree. Well, that's going to do it, everybody, on this episode. We are looking forward to bringing you another episode this week after tomorrow's game against El Salvador. Leave a comment, leave a question, leave a like, subscribe, all of that good stuff. We are just loving to continue to grow this channel, and we'd love to hear from you guys. Until next time, take care.